not just a joke. If you get a chance, talk to the producer over here, and he'll hook you up with a copy of Next Level Deck Building. Thank you for being quick at my awful throw.
75. You can find your pairings on pairings board A. 75. A is an alpha.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, you guys got a few minutes? In looking at Modern, sometimes it can be good to actually just take a step back and look at the format as a whole. Modern hasn't been around for very long. There's been, what, just a couple Modern Pro Tours? It started with Pro Tour Philadelphia, the original combo era of Modern. Pro Tour Philadelphia showed us a format where there were, like today, 15 different combo decks people were playing. Everybody just wanted to win on the fourth turn, or the third turn. Second turn in Sam Black's case. But Wizards has been pretty aggressive with banning cards in Modern, as I'm sure many of you have experienced. Look at the things they've been aiming at, the things that they've been attacking. They're consistently trying to take down any deck that wins before the fourth turn, and any deck that is more than 15% of the field. Well, what does this tell us? That means that we're going to end up in a world where if they always get rid of the turn 3 kill decks, turn 4 is going to be the defining turn of the format. And if they're always banning stuff that's popular, like Deathrite Shaman, if something is just overwhelmingly popular and they ban it, that's going to push the format in a direction where everybody's playing things that are extremely diverse. This weekend, I bet that there are at least 25 different archetypes that show up with more than 1% of the field tomorrow. Modern took 2 steps after that, 2 different directions, 2 different eras that kind of led it a little further away from this. The second big Modern era after the original combos, when they banned 7 more cards, was when Wild Nacatl completely took over. They banned all the combo cards, and suddenly nobody knew what to do besides cast Wild Nacatls. Then when Wizards got rid of that, it's like, well, wait, there's no beatdown and there are no combos? And that's when we saw the Jund era take over. But it was largely an illusion. Modern never had the support, it never had as many tournaments, it never had as many people playing as much Modern as it does today. There were these Pro Tours where they would change the rules before every event, but then after the Pro Tour, there wouldn't be nearly as much Modern played. Now, Modern is played everywhere. It's the second most played format. You realize there are more Modern tournaments than draft tournaments or sealed deck tournaments? Or Legacy? Or anything other than Standard? That's awesome, and it's great to see the Modern community have so much force and energy behind it. But it's a different game now. It used to be that the pros would set the Modern metagame. This time around, look at this last Pro Tour. Not exactly the best showing from the pros. Instead, it was won by a bunch of people who play a lot of Modern. And that's why I think we're going to see a very different direction now. Deathrite Shaman being banned took Jund down a level and all the different black-green decks. Wild Nacatl coming back hasn't exactly took over the format, had a losing record 2 weeks ago. But what we did see is a winning record from people playing Modern. Out of curiosity, and I really don't know what the answer is going to be to this, but out of curiosity, how many of you guys play Modern regularly? That's quite a bit. A lot of people have been asking, why is this tournament so enormous? Why is this the biggest constructed tournament of all time? Where did all these Modern players come from? Modern was designed to be the perfect format for people who have been playing for 3 or 4 years, or 5 years. How many people, Magic's been blowing up over the last few years, but out of curiosity, once again, how many people here have been playing for at least 3 years? This is not a new crowd. Even the people who are here for their first Grand Prix, they've been playing for 3 or 4 years. Modern is the natural transition. Magic is now at the biggest it's been, and every set is the biggest set ever. Every tournament is breaking records, and it's in large part because that audience, like the people who either started or came back to the game during Zendikar or during M10 or Shards Block or Innistrad or any of the sets, this is the maturing of that generation of players. So anyway, where does the history of Modern take us? It takes us to today, where it's a format that is not defined by pros. It's not defined by what people are playing at the Pro Tour. It's influenced somewhat, but it is defined by people who actually play Modern. Well, apparently these are the slides that are about to tell you all of the things we just talked about. Oh, any chance Deathrite Shaman's next? How to read.
Attention Magic players,
Today we're back in a combo era, but I have a feeling this is not going to last very long. Combo completely dominated 2 weeks ago. Like, out of every deck that had a winning record, Blue-White-Red Control was the only non-combo deck out of any of them, out of any of the popular decks. But that's going to change. There's no reason to believe that that's actually going to continue, because at the time, everybody was aiming for Zoo. People were talking about fairies, like we need to have cards to beat fairies, and that didn't exactly show up. What is it going to be like after this tournament? If combo dominates again, if everybody knew better this time and was aiming at combo instead of Zoo, maybe we start, we overshoot even more. Maybe we aim even harder. It's like when you got a catapult and you try to hit a target. If you're to the left of the target, when you try to correct yourself, you want to overshoot. Because the worst thing is when your second shot is off the same direction. Because at least if you overshoot the other way, then you can start to narrow it down. That's why my hope is that we're going to see a format of people who rip combo to shreds. What's going to win? I don't know. Control? Mid-range? Aggro? Combo again? Either way, the question is, how are you going to beat combo, and how are you going to beat the people who want to beat combo? This isn't even all the combo decks. This is incredible. This is ridiculous how many of these decks there are. Is anybody, out of curiosity, is anybody playing a combo deck besides one of these 12? What combo deck? Not to spoil or give information to the enemy. I'm sorry? Green Devotion, that's a good one. What about you guys? Quest for the Holy Relic. I like your style. Wow. This is a format where you can play whatever you want. But you know what Quest for the Holy Relic and Green Devotion both have in common? They are well informed of how fast everybody else is. Your Green Devotion deck ever win on turn 4?
If you're a finalist in Minimaster number 81,
Quest for the Holy Relic.
number 63, please meet
You ever go off? You ever trigger your quest by the third turn? Dude, I want to see your deck. That's pretty... When you're trying to beat 12, 13, 14 different combo decks, being able to find reactive cards or interactive cards that can actually cover multiple bases at the same time is vital. One of the reasons why people don't play Rule of Law more is because out of these 12 decks, it's good against Living End and Storm. But beyond that, I mean, I guess Restore Balance. It's also good against Restore Balance. But it's really tough. It's really tough to when a hate card can only interact with a limited number of people. That's why at its core right now, Modern is a format for things like Thoughtseize. It's a format for something like Path to Exile. I mean, Path to Exile actually works against a lot of these combo decks. And a lot of them, I mean, and combo is often the type of deck that's, creatureless or whatever. In my opinion, the secret card that not very many people are using yet, but should, is Ruined Halo.
Attention Magic players.
Yeah, Ruined Halo is an anti-creature card that actually stops. I mean, against Splinter Twin, you need 2 to actually completely win the game. But if you play 1, you've already shut down most of their combo. Scape Shift, if you name Valakut, they're out. Ad Nauseam, you can name Lightning Storm. And it becomes a lot tougher. They can still win, but it's a lot tougher. Hexproof, I mean, how many creature removal spells can even deal with a creature in Hexproof? But anyway, Ruined Halo, I think is good, but this format's what? Is 10,000 cards in this format? 8,000? I have no idea. There's so many cards in this format, nobody has looked through all of them recently because they have new meaning, they have new light. There's new reasons to play each of the cards compared to, even just a few years ago. And unlike Extended, which was always rotating and always changing, Modern, despite how much Wizards has banned a few cards, Modern doesn't really change as much. At its core, underneath, it has most of the same cards that are still good. I think it's interesting that Wild Nacatl was originally banned in order to promote diversity among aggro decks, and then as soon as Wild Nacatl was banned, there were just no more aggro decks anymore. Now it's come back, and there's Burn, Affinity, which is sort of an aggro deck, Merfolk, Little Kid Green White, 7 different flavors of Zoo. What happened? Why are people playing all these different aggro decks with no Wild Nacatls now that Wild Nacatl is legal? And the answer is that Wild Nacatl makes it so that you know what everybody else is going to try to do to stop aggro. Wild Nacatl being so popular makes it so that you can anticipate, everybody else is going to play Lightning Bolt, or Wall of Omens, or Kitchen Finks, or any of these other cards that are good against Wild Nacatl. So then you can play a deck like Affinity, and all your creatures fly right over the Wall of Omens. Or a deck like Little Kid Green White, where your creatures are just bigger than the other person's. Or a deck like Merfolk, where you don't even care if they bolt one of your creatures, you'll just play some more Lords, or you'll just vial down another one. And the key is, in a format as big and as open with as many different things going on as possible, when you know what kind of things people are going to do to try to stop aggro, then you can exploit that. Modern's come a long way in terms of losing most of the decks besides aggro and combo. I mean, it used to be, how often did it used to be that people would play control decks left and right? That's just such a big part of the metagame. Or black, green, white, or Jund, or black, green, or any sort of deck besides something trying to kill you fast. Well, they don't have the tools in Modern right now. I mean, there's some, but there's so few that everybody else, once they know what people are going to be doing, can attack that. It's like at Pro Tour Dublin, not a lot of people knew how to build an Esper deck correctly. But once everybody had Wafotapa's list, suddenly Mono Black and Mono Blue take over. Well, Mono Blue was already doing really well. But why couldn't people beat that? And why did Mono Black take over? Why didn't Esper just take over? When somebody has a reactive deck, you can choose the answers that they can't solve. Like you can find problems that hit them in their weak spots. In Modern right now, how many good ways are there to even play control? I mean, people play with Vidalcan Shackles or Blood Moon or Sphinx's Revelation, but you can make a real short list of cards that are actually capable of taking over a game, and as long as you don't fold to those, their strategy falls apart. The corollary to this is that if you want to be one of the people playing a bigger deck, if you want to be one of the people that isn't just trying to kill fast, you have to hit them with something they're not prepared for. And there's a lot of things you could do, whether it's mystical teachings or like in Reed Duke's case, Phyrexian Obliterator. But right now, the odds are stacked against you. The combo decks are so fast, and the aggro decks have such good cards like Wild Nacatl and Lightning Bolt and Tarmogoyf. If you want to beat them, you have to beat them with something that they're not prepared for. So anybody here who's thinking about playing a fair deck, I hope you have at least one big element of your strategy, one surprise that they haven't already been testing against. Darkness. All right, keys to Modern. Right now, there's basically 3 things people are doing. And it's not quite this, I guess, but Zoo is more popular than any of the other aggro decks put together. Combo is basically half the field, or at least half the pro field. I bet it'll only be 30% of this field, 40%. And then Blue Moon, I wouldn't say specifically just Blue Moon, but in this spot, it's helping give what are the things you need to not lose to. And in Blue Moon's case, it's showing you a couple of them loudest. Blood Moon, Vidalcan Shackles. How many people here are willing to lose to Blood Moon? I know I am. I mean, sometimes you have to just accept that you can't beat everything. Have you ever played a deck that just can't beat a Vidalcan Shackles? I know I have. You have to figure out what things are you willing to lose to. I mean, sometimes you're going to come up with, your deck is Flash and Protean Hulk and you just beat everything. But most of the time, you have to pick what you're going to beat. You have to be willing to lose to some things, which is a hard thing. But if you have to use 6 cards in your sideboard just to try to get some Yeah, for instance, if you have to use 6 cards to beat Tron, how many times are you going to face Tron in this tournament? Maybe 1 time? Maybe? Anyway, figuring out what the most important questions are, like Blood Moon, Vidalcan Shackles, Splinter Twin killing on the 4th turn. And that's why I think if you take only one thing away from this, it's that preparation for a tournament should be about asking questions. Asking yourself questions that you might not know the answers to. And you might not ever figure out the answers before the tournament starts. But at least if you ask yourself the questions, you'll be thinking about the right things. I think I may have broke it. All right. Now, I know we've already been talking a lot about killing on the 4th turn, but it's not just about that. In Modern right now, the important thing isn't what turn does the game end. The important thing is the critical turn. What turn does the game get decided? What turn does the game take a shift in terms of whoever was losing starts winning? Because at the beginning of the matchup, you might not know which side you're on, but at the beginning of the matchup, one person is ahead. They start out ahead, and the other person is trying to take that away from them. It looks often like there's a teeter-totter, but most of the time in a format as fast and as ruthless as Modern, most of the time, one person is winning until they're losing, until they're not. If somebody's gonna kill you on the 4th turn, you gotta interact with them by turn 3. You gotta do something that's gonna stop that. If you're not gonna win until the 5th turn, you gotta figure out how to slow the other person down. What do you guys think will be the most popular deck tomorrow? Wow, I guess it's Twin. This will be interesting. Twin feeds right into this, turn 4. But have you noticed how much recently people have been playing decks, like Twin decks that kill on the 5th turn? They're using Restoration Angel and Kiki Jiki. One of the oldest tricks in the book is to be a little bit bigger than the other guy. If everybody else is playing a Twin deck, somewhat non-intuitively, you want to be 1 turn slower. If everybody's playing no interaction at all, if everybody just wants to race, then you want to be 1 turn faster. But right now, everybody is so focused on interacting. Everybody wants to play so many ways to stop combo. You want to be 1 turn slower because you want the other person to have to try to go off, you stop them, and then you go off now that they're defenseless. And it isn't even just combo decks. When 2 zoo decks play each other, the guy who's got a slower zoo deck usually has the advantage. Owen Turtenwald, Brian Kibler, both of them played zoo at the last Pro Tour, and both of them played slow zoo or big zoo. It's not about being faster when the other person is interacting with you. If the other zoo deck has lightning bolts and lightning helix and path to exile and blockers, you want to have Thundermaw Hellkite or Chandra Pyromaster. You want to be a little bit bigger. Now, it doesn't mean you can just play some ridiculously slow deck, but when people are interacting, the baseline strategy is to be a little bit bigger than what everybody else is doing, because the only alternative is to be a lot faster. And right now, you can't be a lot faster. Normally, the end games of decks are determined by things like Primeval Titan or Elspeth or Sphinx's Revelation or some expensive spell. Modern is a strange creature right now where the end game is defined by you're dead. Like, I get these 2 cards and now you're dead. Ad nauseum, Malira, Kiki Jiki are all cards that often are played the turn the game is going to end. Having the right ways to interact with that is, I personally recommend making a list. Making a list of everything that you need to beat. What is your plan against each one? So I think we're about to find out an awful lot about the direction that Modern has not only gone in the last 2 weeks, but is going. It sounds like everybody here is on the same page about combo, all eyes on combo and beating it. But at the same time, there's going to be 2,000 people playing in this Grand Prix who have never played in a Grand Prix before. That's an awful lot of people who might be showing up with who knows what. Now, a lot of them could just be ruthless killers on the battlefield, but an awful lot of them are not going to know what they're in for. So I strongly recommend this weekend in particular, playing something that you know, something that you're familiar with. I guess that would be the single biggest piece of advice I would give with regards to this tournament, this time around. You might play against 18 different decks on your way to winning this Grand Prix. You're not gonna be familiar with every single situation that comes up. And honestly, none of the decks are that much better than any of the other decks that it's worth playing a deck that you're not comfortable with, that you're not familiar with. If you're still torn on what to play, you gotta just trust which one you have the most experience with. You know, if you just wanna gain some experience, play something you're not familiar with. That'll teach you the most. But if you're trying to qualify for the Pro Tour, and it's interesting because this tournament this weekend, there's gonna be probably a record number of people qualifying for a Pro Tour. There might be 20 people. If you're trying to qualify for the Pro Tour this time around, or if you're trying to make day 2, or if you're trying to cash, or if you're trying to win the event, you gotta play something you know, something you have experience with. The reality is that this format is actually not as friendly to combo as it looks. 2 weeks ago, everyone was trying to beat Zoo. There was so much creature removal. There was so much targeting the popular decks. This weekend, first of all, honestly, I think Snapcaster Mage, as much as people talk about it, I think Snapcaster Mage is gonna end up being the mainstream strategy that ends up doing very well this weekend. But I also think we're gonna see a top 8 with a couple combo decks that aren't the ones people have been aiming at. And we're gonna see a return of Tarmogoyf, and there's gonna be at least one person who does something that top 8s this time around with something that nobody has done and nobody has done anything with. All right, I'm gonna take a short break here, but I'm gonna be back in just a few minutes with I guess, Cedric, and we're gonna be talking about whatever it is anybody has questions for. So definitely tweet at SCG Live with any questions you may have, or there's not a system for people IRL to. The system IRL is to use your smartphone and tweet at SCG Live. Plus, one person whose question gets asked is gonna receive randomly win a copy of Next Level Deck Building. And plus you'll have your question answered. I mean, I don't know what kind of deranged things people wanna ask, but see you in about 5 minutes. Thank you guys.